we have Michigan State at Oregon. Oregon hosts Michigan State on Friday night. The Ducks are coming off a dominant 34-13 win over UCLA. The Spartans aim to rebound with 31-point loss to Ohio State. Michigan State's head coach Jonathan Smith previously coached for Oregon State, leading them to an upset over Oregon in 2022. Strong linebacker play, solid defense, and a potent offense led by quarterback Dillon Gabriel. Michigan State has had offensive struggles, ranking low nationally in rushing and scoring, plagued by turnovers. Oregon and Michigan State last met in the 2018 Red Box Bowl, where Oregon won in Big Ten fashion, 7-6. Zach, what stands out to you in this game?
Can we say that this is actually the official Big Ten debut of Oregon? They made so much of an issue about last week being Oregon's Big Ten debut, and I'm like, you played UCLA.
Yeah, it was.
What the heck?
It was
so ridiculous.
My when you gosh. Play a Pac-12 team
and an awful one to begin. I mean, my gosh. Yeah. Big Ten Network. It was on Big Ten Network, or was it on Fox?
I think it was Peacock, wasn't it?
Was it Peacock? Well, they're terrible too.
Fox. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It was Fox's E crew that had to work the 11 o'clock shift. Yeah. So I think there's a little bit of upset alert here.
Are you calling it upset alert?
I'm not calling it, but I'm just saying I wouldn't be surprised. I am calling. There's one I am calling for sure. This is not it, but I will say this. I have been just continually underwhelmed by the Ducks. You know, the one exception being their win against Oregon State. And, you know, to your point about the line play for Michigan State, I think Oregon's defensive line will give Michigan State's offensive line problems. I think Michigan State's defensive line is going to give Oregon's offensive line problems. And I think we're going to see a lot of disruption in this game. I think we might see Gabriel take a few sacks. Cal Halladay, again, old school Big Ten linebacker. But I mean, they have other talent around him too. And I think they're going to get some pressure. I think they're going to help have this offense stall for Oregon. And I think Childs on the other end, despite the talent for Oregon's defense, I think he's going to get a couple of big plays with Marsh, with Glover, with those receivers. And so I think this game will be closer. At the end of the day, I do think Oregon has too much. And I have 34-24 ultimately.
I'm going to put this one on upset alert. I think that
Are you calling the upset?
I am. I think that Michigan State's defensive line is going to be able to do a lot against Oregon here. I think that their linebackers are fantastic. I think that they're going to shut down the running game here. Jordan Turner, Cal Halladay, those guys. I think that Oregon is not going to have much of a running game in this one, and that's going to be really impactful for them. Now, obviously, Dillon Gabriel is Dillon Gabriel. You know, he can make some highlight plays and stuff like that. So I don't think they're going to shut down Dillon Gabriel, but I do think that they're going to make life for Dillon Gabriel in the backfield very difficult. And I think that you're going to see him, stressed out, trying to get the ball out quick. And you can see some press coverage from Michigan State that really leads to, some knockdown passes, maybe a pick six that goes the other way. They pick off a screen pass or a slant or something like that. And I think that the real question here is, does Michigan State do enough on offense to make Aiden Childs not feel like he has to play hero ball? This is where Michigan State gets in the most trouble, where Aiden Childs goes out there and feels like he is the only option for this offense. I think Michigan State has a good pair of running backs. Nate Carter and Katron Lynch-Adams is not, they are not a bad running back duo. It's actually kind of an underrated running back duo in my mind, especially in the Big Ten. However, this duo needs to be getting yards on the ground in order to take the pressure off of Aiden Childs. If Aiden Childs can go with 0 interceptions in this game, which I know is a very difficult thing to do because he's thrown a lot of interceptions, but if he can throw 0 interceptions in this game, Zach, there were seriously some balls that Aiden Childs threw against Ohio State that just dropped my mouth. I was like, oh my gosh, how did you just make that throw? One in
Yep.
particular was a post route to the outside where he just dropped it in a bucket. The Ohio State cornerback, I think it was Jordan Hancock, and that one had very good coverage. Aiden Childs just dropped it right in there, dropped it
Yep.
right behind the shoulder of his receiver, and like, there's nothing you can do to defend that. Now, if Aiden Childs can put that together consistently, that's going to be fantastic. That's kind of the question for me is, can Aiden Childs do that consistently enough where he doesn't feel like all the pressure is on him? And can he, make enough plays toward the end of the game for his team to come out on top? I think it's a really risky pick because of those reasons. But if they can
Mm-hmm.
make that happen, I feel strongly that Oregon will not score more than 24 points in this game just because of that
Wow.
defensive
Yeah.
line and those linebackers that Michigan State has. But we're going to have to see it from the offense. Now, if Aiden Childs throws 3 picks, yeah, they'll score over 24 points just because turning the ball over so much. But
Yep.
just based off driving the ball down the field, if Michigan State does a good job of pinning them deep and that kind of stuff, they could do a really good job.
Yep.
So, yeah.
So what's your prediction? Score prediction?
27-24 Michigan State.
Okay. Yeah, I have 34-24. I think part of the reason why I have Oregon scoring more is I'm assuming there will be a pick or two for
Right.
Childs. But I
I'm
think,
banking on there won't be any turnovers.
yeah. And I think I think if that happens, I think you might be spot on because ultimately I think Oregon needs some chaos to be successful on defense. I shouldn't say to be successful, but I think with Michigan State's talent, like guys, you have to understand Michigan State is better than we thought coming into the season. They have more talent. And I think
They have the
Jonathan Smith,
trenches.
yeah, and I think Jonathan Smith has really coached them up. So I agree that I think if they play a clean game, I think this is an upset. I just don't think they're going to play a clean game.
Which, if you look at the ESPN SP Plus, Michigan State's defense is only 4 spots behind Oregon's defense, and Oregon has played a much weaker schedule
Yep.
than Michigan State has. So I know everybody wants to point out Boise State, like some Boise State's some contender or something like that. Let's get it straight. They're a contender to be a G5 playoff team. Like, we got to stop acting like G5 playoff team contender is like a top 10 team in the country. They're not. Like, yes,
Mhm.
Ashton Gentry is very good and he can run the ball very well, but it's still Boise State, right? Like, I'm
Yeah.
not trying to be disrespectful here, but let's stop asking like Oregon played some spectacular team in their non-conference. They played Idaho, Boise State, and who was the other one? Oregon State. Like,
Yep.
it's not a
Yeah.
great out of conference. And I realize
Yeah.
that Oregon State beat Purdue.
Yeah.
Big whoop. A lot of teams beat Purdue.
Well, and the reality too is Oregon should have lost to Boise State. Like they got really lucky.
Yeah,
And
they
so
needed 2 special teams touchdowns.
yeah. Now Steely Matt makes a good point. Short week road game. So for Sparty. So I mean that is another factor to consider, but it's also a 9 p.m. game and you're traveling West Coast. So well, and that actually could be against Michigan State's favor too, because for them it'll feel like, oh no, it's 9 p.m. Eastern, so 6 p.m.
Yeah.
Never mind, forget that I said that.
We'll see. We'll see. It is a Friday night game. I'm also banking on the fact that every Friday night game has been a close game so
It's
far
true.
this season.
It's
So,
true. It's been
Steely
beautiful.
Matt, I hear you, man. That it's gonna be, or who was that? Was that Steely Matt? Or no, Troy. I hear you, man. Oregon winning by 17. We haven't seen that on Friday night yet. So I'm looking for the Friday night magic to continue. That it's a close game till the end of it all. So
It's beautiful.
the only game that
Beautiful.
wasn't close was Indiana versus an FCS team, and probably one of the worst FCS teams I've ever seen. So